This is the plaintiff, Barbara Ferranti. She says the defendant, her daughter, asked her to cash a check for her, and as it turns out, the check was a fraud. Unfortunately, the defendant's a compulsive liar. And daughter or no daughter, she's out $2,782 over this. And that's just what she's suing for today. This is the defendant, Christina Windtime. She says she got the check from working online. It was the third check she received, and she thinks her mother's lying about it being no good. That's right, she hates to say it, but her mother's just a mad old lady who's lashing out at her and trying to get custody of her son. She's looking forward to the judge getting to the bottom of things here today and knows the truth will finally come out. She's accused of being mean to a mom.
All parties, please raise your right hand. Have a seat, guys, please. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas. Barbara Ferranti?
Yes, ma'am.
You are suing your daughter, Christina Windtime, for $2,782 that you say you have been damaged as a result of her giving you a bad check to cash. What happened?
Well, I went to Christina's home and I was getting ready to pick up my grandson for a visit. And she said to me,
How
"Hey,
old's
Mom,
your grandson?
4 years old." She said, "Hey, Mom, can you cash this for me?" I said, "Well, what is it?" And she said, "It's a check from work." She said, "I don't want to tell my husband because I'm going to pay my rent with that. I'm going to pay 2 months in advance." I said, "Okay, let me see the check." So I proceeded and I put the check into my account on 4/12 of this year. And the money was there, and she said, "Well, let me know when it's going to clear." So I called her back up after I had deposited it in my account, and I had told her, "The check will be clear for you on Tuesday." She said, "Great."
Okay, and then you gave her the money?
And I took out the money for her out of my check.
Why didn't you wait till Tuesday?
Because that's when it was clear from my account.
Okay.
That's when the bank told me that it would clear.
Listen to my question. The bank told you it will clear on Tuesday.
That's
Tuesday. The amount. And then you gave her the money on what day?
I gave it to her on Tuesday morning.
After it cleared?
After it cleared.
But it didn't clear.
I was told the check would clear.
Not would, did. Do you understand the distinction between what you're saying and what I'm saying? What I would have done, getting a third-party check, is waited until the bank said, "Yep, check was good." You didn't do that. You just said, "All right, money should be in my account if everything works out well," and then everything didn't work out well.
Well, everything didn't work out well.
Right. Who is the gentleman next to you?
This is my brother-in-law.
And who's the lady next to you?
That's my daughter,
Okay.
Leslie.
Her sister?
Her sister.
Okay, go ahead.
With that, I was going to work. I did not find out that this check was no good until Wednesday.
Right.
So she had already gotten money prior to.
And how did you find out that it was no good on Wednesday?
I tried to use my debit card, and my debit card was
because
declined.
what happened was that the check didn't clear. It never cleared.
Okay.
It was a fraud, right?
Yes, I have the check here.
Let me see it. What's going on?
It's not the first check I had gotten through the company. It's the third one. Now, I didn't tell her when she picked up my son to cash the check. I handed her the check to hold on to. I was in the process
Hold on to and do what? Ride it like a pony? What do you do with a check?
because I was...
Why didn't you hold on to it?
I was in the middle of moving into my new apartment. I didn't want to lose it.
So did you give her like a lamp, a pan, and a check to hold while you're moving? I don't understand.
No, I just gave her the check to hold on to.
Why would you lose it? Why don't you just put it somewhere where you're not going to lose it?
Because I didn't pack everything up.
Did you not trust your husband to not spend it?
No, it had nothing to do with that. He didn't even know I had gotten it in.
So you didn't want him to know?
Well, I wanted to pay the rent.
And your husband doesn't want to pay the rent?
No, it wasn't that. I wanted to surprise him with paying the rent so he
Okay.
could pay his car insurance.
So you give it to her to do what with? Because
To
if you
hold
don't,
on
she doesn't
to.
catch it, you can't pay the rent. So why would I believe that you didn't ask her to cash it?
I didn't ask her to cash it. I asked her to hold on to it.
How are you going to pay the rent by her holding it?
Because I was going to get it back from her to cash it. I was going to cash it in my own account.
Did you give her your children's birth certificates, Did you give her your marriage? Are you married? What's
Yes.
that? A marriage certificate? Did you give her other important documents that couldn't get lost in your move?
No, because those are already in the safe.
Oh, well, if you have a safe, why don't you put the check in the safe?
Because I don't have the code for the safe.
Oh. Do you not understand how everyone within the sound of your voice thinks you're a liar? Hearing you explain these things? Of course you gave it to her to cash. The problem is, go forward, go ahead. You felt she owed you money, and what did you feel she owed you money for?
She claimed my son on her taxes.
So tell me
She
about
was supposed
that.
to give me money for a car from her taxes.
Okay,
So this way I could have transportation for me and my son.
okay.
So that's what I thought the money that she handed me was from.
For a car or for the taxes?
From the taxes for a car. To get
For
a car.
or because she claimed your son inappropriately? Why did you claim her son as a dependent?
I didn't claim that child as a inappropriate dependent. I have been claiming that child for the last 3 years because I have taken care of that child for the last 3 years while she's ran around and abandoned the child.
Define abandoned.
Define abandoned. She never came around to see the child. She took off with boyfriends. She never called. And then on a whim, when she felt like coming around, that's when she'd come around and take the child.
How much time would the child be left with you before she'd come around?
Months at a time.
Months at a time.
Months at a
Come on
time.
up, sister. Are you close with the family?
Somewhat.
Do you know this to be true? What your mom just
Yes.
said?
She did ask her to cash the check.
No, not
Nope.
that part. I meant the part about the child.
Yes. He's been living with us over like about 3 years, so.
And I was living with you guys too.
And she moved out, and in I think it was July, she moved out and she didn't really come around as much
Where was the child?
with you.
So what do you think happened? You think she gave you a check, asked you to cash it, knowing that it was fraudulent?
I didn't know it was fraudulent, but her husband texted me on my phone and said I owed his wife $4,000.
When?
This was just after the check was found to be
Fraudulent?
fraudulent.
So
I
it
have
certainly
that check.
looks like they're
I
trying
have
to
it
stiff
here.
you as much as they can stiff you, and that's what that check was for. I don't understand. Why would it be anybody's fault but yours? Why would your mother eat if the check was fraudulent and you don't know that it was fraudulent? You had no idea that it was fraudulent. She thinks you and your husband knew, which is a very common thing. This happens all you know that now, right? Because you spoke
Now
to the
I do,
DA's
yes.
office.
Now I got educated.
Okay. The police inexplicably tell you, oh, this is a personal matter.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because a defendant is your daughter? Yeah, it's deeply personal, but it's also criminal.
Exactly.
Okay? So it's ridiculous that the police gave you that hard time. But the DA sat down with you and explained how common this is, that people try to pass checks from third parties that are in fact not legitimate.
Yes.
But let's say that the company you worked for, which is some internet company, illegitimately paid you or something. I'm finding that hard to believe for the following reason, because you say that you got one good check from that company that you were able to cash, and one prior bad check from the company.
And then they agreed to reimburse me with another check that was good.
Okay, the one that was bad, it had insufficient funds?
Right.
Do you understand the difference between that and a counterfeit check? This is a counterfeit check.
I understand the difference, yes.
Right. That's
But
what
I
makes
did
it
not-
look like your company didn't send you a counterfeit check, because your company was paying you for work you did. You know, one thing is for the company not to have funds, another thing is for a counterfeit check. Somebody else counterfeits the company check.
Okay.
You see? That's the part that makes you look a little dirty. But now, let's discuss this in a different way. Let's do it your way, which is, unbeknownst to you, the thing is a fraud, right? Who's going to eat that? Why would she ever eat that? Your answer to that is, oh, she owes me money for claiming my son as a dependent. That's your answer?
No.
Okay, so what's your defense?
I never asked her to cash the check.
Yeah, but you took money for it, so you clearly asked her to cash the check. Didn't you take
No.
$2,000? I'm sorry, am I misunderstanding? Did you not take $2,543 from
I
her?
thought that was from the taxes that when she claimed my son.
I'm sorry, the check is for how much?
$2,893.
Okay, and you say you gave her $2,543. Why
Yes,
the
ma'am.
difference?
She promised me $350 out of that check
Oh, as a fee.
as a fee.
Oh, it wasn't motherly love doing your daughter a favor. You were actually getting paid $350 for cashing it behind the husband's back? You should charge your daughter $350.
I
to
didn't
cash a
charge her.
check.
She offered.
It doesn't matter that she offered. Why would you take it? $350 fee for charging the check.
I didn't get 350.
No, you got zip. But why would? But that's what you thought you were going to
I
get.
got a bank account closed, a mother-in-law's bank account closed, and a bunch of
Because your name was on
over
your
this.
mother-in-law's bank account.
Exactly.
So when the bank had to recoup their
Exactly.
$893, they took what was left in your account plus what was left in any other account that had
Exactly.
your name on it. That doesn't answer my question. My question was, what mother thinks in her head, oh, let me gouge my daughter $350, because she offered it. Did you offer her $350 to cash?
I never
a check?
asked her to cash a check. So why
Yeah,
would
so
I
that
have
her
her
version
money?
is she never asked you to cash a check.
No, I have a
But
witness
when
to
you're
that.
accepting money, which was $2,543, exactly $350 less, don't you say to her, why are you shortchanging me $350?
Like I said, I didn't know she had cashed a check, so why would I have asked her
What did
that?
you think she was giving you $2,543 for?
To buy a vehicle from the money that she had claimed
Why
my
exactly
son.
$2,543, such an odd amount? By the way, doesn't this mean that the company owes you money, so you're going to be reimbursed this money anyway?
I can't get a hold of the company now.
Whose problem is that?
Bentley mine.
Yeah, apparently. What's $212 amount taken out of the account? Well, that's not making sense. You're trying to get paid twice then.
all I want back is the $2,500
That you gave her?
and $25.43, the $49 for over fees.
Let me see proof of the $49 for over fees. And what else?
And that's it.
When did you find out that your mother had been claiming him as a deduction?
When my taxes were returned, when I tried claiming my son.
Welcome back to the People's Court. Harvey Levin here. Would you ever sue your kid if your kid just screwed you over financially and there was no excuse?
No, I think you have to handle those things in your house. You don't bring that to court. You should talk to your daughter.
But the daughter's not listening to you.
You still have to figure out a way to do it. You get your family involved. I don't think going to court is the answer.
What do you think?
I agree. I think it's the court of the family should be the way you handle it, not in the court of law.
Anybody think that it's appropriate to do?
It depends. If it's definitely not about the money, but maybe if there's some kind of lesson to be taught, then perhaps, yeah.
Fair enough. You listening? Yeah. Going inside the courtroom.
When Christina finally moved out in July and left that child with me, we had an agreement. I had temporary custody. We had it signed by a bank, notarized, the whole 9 yards. I had that child all year. She didn't have any right to claim that child because she did not take care of that child that whole year.
Since this problem between the two of you, are you still seeing your grandson?
Yes, ma'am.
Is he still living with you?
No.
Okay.
No.
It sounds like she's a big part of his life.
I lived with her for the first 3 years of his
Right,
life.
right.
So yes.
Yeah.
I mean, when you run out of heat and the only source of heat is a waterbed and that waterbed is your mother's, where are you going to put your child? My son was a premature child. He couldn't hold his own body temperature. So yes, he is a big part of her life. But I worked. Okay? When I worked, my father watched him. I was at one point paying my sister to watch him. When I moved out because of the fact that she turned around and told me that I couldn't have my boyfriend at the house. When I went to the house to get my son, she was not there. When I called, she'd tell me I couldn't pick up my son because they had other things to do. Okay? So she wants to run her mouth about it. That's fine. I don't care.
Are you guys in a custody battle? Or
Yes.
But, okay.
I'm fighting her and my son's father for custody of my son.
Right, but with all due respect, grandparents don't have a right to
We know
custody.
this.
Okay,
We know this.
That's Supreme Court settled law for many years.
We know this.
So you're really fighting your ex, but you're saying your mother's joining forces with your ex?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no, she's...
In December, when I allowed my son to spend the night after a doctor's appointment, she moved my ex in so I couldn't get my son back.
Stop looking at her and stop talking to her. Talk to me when you're talking to me.
Okay? I had to get my son's father to come out with my son so I could get my son back because she threatened to have me arrested if I came on her property or called her house again.
Yeah, but obviously after that, you guys patch things up because you're handing her a check that you say you wanted her to hold, and she's the person you turn to hold it, and she's telling you she's going to buy you a car someday. I mean, so that's you're talking about stuff that happened before you guys patched it up, right?
We fight back and forth all the time. It's always been like that.
Do you have a good relationship?
No.
You think your mother's a liar,
I know she is.
and you think your daughter's a liar.
I know that wholeheartedly. Wholeheartedly.
See, but I don't manipulate other people to lie for me.
Okay, folks, based on what I've heard, she needs to be reimbursed for the fraudulent check. And you can go chase a company you chose to work for and file a lawsuit against them to try to get reimbursed for money that you should have been paid for working. But it doesn't become her problem. As for her promise to buy you a car, you can't sue on a promise. Somebody says they're going to be nice to you and buy you a car. It's really nice, but you can't sue on a promise. And you can't say, oh, I just, nailed you out of all this money. But you know what? Since you promised me you were going to buy me a car, I'm just going to keep that money. And that's not how it works. If you feel that she inappropriately claimed your child on the taxes without your permission, you can file a separate lawsuit. You just can't steal this money, okay? You can file a separate lawsuit against her and say, and prove to a court of law just how often you were in charge of the child versus how often she was in charge of the child. But it doesn't sound like that's going to go too well for you, judging by other people living in the house who are going to be testifying against you. So you might want to think that one through. And as for this check, however, my work is done, and I find in favor of the plaintiff in the amount that she gave you plus her bank fees, which is $2,592. That is my judgment.
Thank you.
Both sides, hold on, ma'am.
So the fraudulent check is not the plaintiff's problem. It's your problem. Step on in here. What's your feeling on the outcome?
It is what it is.
What's going on in the family here?
You know what? Liars will always be liars, and that's the way it's going to stay.
Who knows what that means? We don't know what that means. Can you patch things up? And you said it goes back and forth.
It's always gone back and forth since I was little, so
And it
you know
will
what?
continue
It'll
to,
continue.
you think? Would you go back to court against her to try to get that tax money back?
Most likely.
You will. All right. You head right down there, all right? So you step on out here and tell me what your feelings are coming out of the courtroom after all of this.
Well, I won, so I'm happy.
Yeah?
That's it. It's over. I don't have to deal with the bank anymore.
No, not with the bank, but you have to deal with
She's my daughter.
your daughter, right?
She's my daughter.
This is the way things are in the family?
This is the way it is. We're always going to butt heads. We're good.
But you still love her.
I still love my daughter.
Harvey?
You know, in some big cities, there are services where you can get low cost or even free family mediation. They actually do this to avoid people going to court and avoid violence and all sorts of situations. This family really needs it. That will do it for this case. Litigants for the next case on the way into the courtroom right now.